Okay, streaming soon. 13 seconds, 12. 5 seconds. Okay, and we're live. Welcome back to the All Things Aged Care Weekly Wrap-Up. This live stream is brought to you in collaboration with the Australian Aging Agenda, who have generously offered 2 tickets to the 2026 Positive Aging Summit, which is locked in for 21st May in Adelaide at the Hilton. This is an event that drives the importance of reablement and allied health in aged care. So thank you, Mark Ryu and Natasha Egan, for offering double passes worth $2,000. If you want to purchase tickets ahead of time, head to www.positiveagingsummit.com.au to book your tickets now. And if you purchase the tickets but happen to win the double pass, Mark will refund your tickets. My name is Anthony Nguyen, aged care recruitment expert and host of the Pioneers in Aged Care podcast. If you're looking for clinical, management, or executive positions in aged care, reach out to me for a confidential conversation about career options or even a spot on the podcast. Next, we have Robert Covino, founder and CEO of Mirrors Australia, a leading voice in aged care innovation and data-driven transformation. He led the creation of technologies like Mirrors Metrics and Care Minute Manager, and now Mirrors Plus, an AI-powered platform uniting software and data to streamline everything from admissions to compliance. And rounding out our hosting crew is Owen Matheson, strategic connector and founder of Mission Critical Group. He works with owners, boards, and executives with a knack for connecting the right people, opportunities, and capital to unlock growth and drive innovation. A natural MC, Owen will be guiding our conversations, keeping things insightful and full of energy. And our special guest for today is famously known as the former CEO of Warrigal. He's currently a board member of Aging Australia, Wesley Mission, and Grand Pacific Health. He's also consulting for Community Industry Group and was a regional councillor at Business Illawarra and chair on the Lighthouse and Cedars boards. Everyone, please raise the roof once again for Mark Sewell.
Yes, we will. Great to see you, Mark. And we definitely like to call you a friend of the show now. That was an absolute cracker with Nikki Sloan last week. Thank you for that valued introduction and the amazing work that you're doing across Bed Block Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, and the amazing intergovernmental, multi-agency, regional health and aged care task force. Try saying that one. But amazing people, all of you, and the work you're doing to get the attention of the aged care minister, Sam Ray, last week, and then that famed call out by Nikki Sloan, bravely inviting Mark Butler to consider replicating what is working well at a regional level at a national level. And so we've had a fair bit of engagement across media, across the industry, across the stakeholders. And that's what we're really about at All Things Aged Care. We want to create a forum where we can talk with people like yourself who have served the industry faithfully for so long, and then create an open mic environment where all stakeholders can have their say as we talk about issues that really matter. So I'd love, talking about issues that really matter, I feel like you've always been a man on a mission, Mark. Tell us a bit about your journey. Where did it all begin and why aged care?
Where did it all begin? Well, I was born in a small cottage in North Wollongong. No, not that far back. That's 65 years ago now.
How is that possible, Mark?
How is that possible? Exactly. So I've been involved in aged care for about 25 years, both as a executive and CEO at Warrigal, which is on the south coast of New South Wales, but also at the Peak Association, which was called AXA back then, and the Business Chamber and some other things. Before then, I worked for the New South Wales State Government in disability services. Back then, most people with disabilities lived in large institutional settings or fifth schedule hospitals, and I was involved in the program that deinstitutionalised those people and helped them find community group homes across the community. So I was really, really delighted to be involved in that. And before that, I did about 8 years of child protection work for the Department of Community Services, now called DCJ, but back then called DOCS. So I've always definitely had an interest in mission work or community services reform. Got my Bachelor of Social Sciences at Charles Sturt University, majoring in sociology. Then I realised that charities and human services have got to survive. So I did my MBA in business organisation and business law. And then more recently did my graduate studies in being a company director, because gosh, some organizations don't do well because their governance and their oversighting leadership level needs a bit of help. So that's, and to top it all off, I sort of tried to retire about 2 years ago. And as my 7th or 6th grandchild arrived, and I wanted to do other things, but I found myself doing 5 part-time roles now in my retirement, transition to retirement, and having lots of fun, helping just other organisations do their great work. And as Anthony said, you know, Wesley Mission and Grand Pacific Health and Ageing Australia. And most of all, though, with Nikki Sloan. She talked to me in a car park about 2 years ago and said, "Oh, I don't think you should retire. I think you should come and work for me. It'll only be 1 day a week, don't worry." And I wrote a submission with her for the state government about the hospital crisis and why it's caused by the lack of aged care beds and aged care growth. And it was successful. So she has employed me to do some work with the hospitals, with aged care providers, and with her across the Illawarra region. So my passion, if you like, for helping organisations, not-for-profit organisations, do well and meet the needs of people in our community continues beyond my so-called retirement.
All great.
So you're on mute.
Sorry, that's an interesting pathway from the social science studies at Charles Sturt to docs and working with children. So right at the other end of the spectrum, that's not a common one, that we get that background in children and preventative care right through to aged care. It's quite a span. Is there anything that you feel that you took from that very different environment and have been able to apply that into what you do on the aged care side?
Well, actually, yes, because a lot of the vulnerabilities that people experience are related to our systems, our society, the way people are treated, the way people just turn a blind eye to people in need. And so children at harm or experiencing harm often experience that, with people just not wanting to hear them, not wanting to hear their stories of harm or abuse. But in a child protection environment, adults take charge and take complete control and have to provide that protection. As I moved through disability services, there were adults with disabilities who also needed someone to take charge and protect them, but they also had rights. They also needed to make their own choices and be treated like adults, even though they had low skill to make some decisions or to enact what we would think as a normal full life. But they deserved the opportunity to have a go and to explore those things as adults. Moving into aged care and understanding what older people go through, it's pretty confronting to hear the Age Discrimination Commissioner think that Australia is the most ageist country on earth, and that we are more paternalistic and controlling of older people than any other place, and that we older people get lonely and separate and ignored and don't have a right to have a say in their own affairs. So in fact, if you like, they're almost opposites. I want older people to be protected and to live harm-free, safe, fulfilling lives, just like children should. But the last thing I want is for us to be paternalistic or controlling or tell them what they must do to be safe. They have every right to make their own choices. Their dignity of risk, to take risk. I think the baby boomers aren't yet in aged care. They're about to swamp aged care, if you like. It's the builder generation before the baby boomers that are mostly populating geriatric wards in hospitals and aged care. And most of those people are grateful for help and support. And but gosh, boomers will want to retain control and stay in charge. Hopefully they'll plan ahead. Hopefully they'll have good things in place. Hopefully they'll make wise decisions, but they'll express a lot of opinion and live diverse experiences as they get older, which is why solving the hospital crisis needs a range of different things, because older people are really different from each other.
And I'm also, thank you for that. And we absolutely want to encourage that on our show, that boomers are having their say in that depth of wisdom that comes through experience. I'm also keen to pick up on the fact that you started in NDIS with that home care focus before home care was really an industry.
Yeah, it's 40 years this year since the HAC program started, which is the Home and Community Care Program. And it's actually been the most successful part of the whole aged care system in Australia. It's not many, I've travelled around the world and looked at some other places, Japan, the UK and the USA, and they don't kind of have the early prevention type programs like Australia has. Our CHSP, or our Commonwealth Home Support Program, offers a lot of great help, early, low-level help for people as they start to age. And sometimes people need meals delivered, they might need community transport, they might need other things. And if they get those things, they can stay at home a lot longer than they would normally. And then, of course, the home care program was developed and home care packages, and that's being reformed even further now with a lot more levels and a lot more packages coming. But Australia can be very proud of having a very large preventative home care early intervention program, because most builder generation, most people in their 80s now, and many people that would be over 100 now, as they got older, it was their children who moved in with them, or their children asked them to move in with them. It was often their daughters who left their jobs and cared for them full time at home. There weren't many retirement villages or aged care homes up until about 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So we have a very different society, and people are often on their own. Their children are all working. They don't have 5, 6 or 7 children like the builder generation. We only have 1 or 2, and they could be anywhere in the world. And a pretty individualistic society that says, well, if you're living on your own, you should look after yourself and get on with your own life. Don't expect us all to wrap around you in our little neighbourhood and look after you. So that's pretty hard going for older people. In fact, in Japan, they have a word for living alone at home, kodokushi, and it means a lonely end. And in Japan, where families are very small and where communities are very mobile, and lots of next generation Japanese live overseas and have left behind their elders, there are plenty of people who pass away, about 40 or 50,000 a year, on their own and aren't found for a long time. The phenomenon that's happening in big numbers in Japan, because it's the oldest society in the world, with about 30% of its people over 65. But the phenomenon is starting to happen here. You occasionally see those stories in the press, and it's happening in big way in places that are older than Australia, like Italy, Portugal, and Spain. So I really hope our CHSP and our early intervention supports, our lovely family-friendly neighbourhoods in Australia, and the good work of the not-for-profit organisations right across communities will prevent people not having access to services, being at home without any help, and ending up alone at the end of life. And many people have pretty extraordinary lives, doing lots of great stuff, and to have that last year of life on their own, struggling, is an awful thing. We should be celebrating our oldest Australians, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Here. Yeah, I completely agree, Mark, that we need to do that. And we're the sandwich generation. We're all kind of having to think about that. What do we do to honour and respect the parents that have provided so much for us, and to not just move on out of their lives and have it all one way? So And obviously that travel has been quite, it sounds pivotal in terms of the way you look at the world, taking in those different cultural examples. Kodakushi, I think that's the word for
Kodakushi, I like that word.
and that's being proactive in community. Is that what I understand it to be?
Well, no, it's about living a very lonely existence at the end
So
of your
avoid
life.
Kodakushi. We don't
Exactly.
want no deal.
We do
Right.
not want that. In fact, I remember when I visited the US, which is a very difficult system to use because it's so expensive, and your health insurances have to cover all your care costs as you get older. If you don't have those or can't afford them, it's very expensive. But there's some really great not-for-profits, particularly in California and in Washington and Boston areas. That, in fact, there's a virtual retirement village in Boston that leaves people in their own homes across the city, but links them together with a software system and has them feel like they're all connected. And this 1,000 people can talk together. They're all over 80. They can talk together. They can meet in the park with activities that are organized. They can get help by a push of a button and talk to someone. They can talk to each other and form coffee groups or craft groups or mutual transport groups. And almost all of them talk about no longer having the normal neighborhood supports and no longer having family supports, but they've linked up together. And this is the Beacon Hill group in Boston. And those kind of examples are inspiring. And I think there's a couple in Australia in different places, but that shows you the resilience of older people all getting together to solve their own problems like they have most of their lives. We, though, we can enable that. We can help older people work out what they want and see if we can provide the services with them and for them.
Absolutely. And I think on that topic too, Mark, I mean, we have our own challenges here with the cost of living and how expensive that, and what it changes families. And there's a group I'm working with in Lakemba who are a focused Islamic and Muslim cultural provider. And I think to that culture, mainly the families would look after each other. But with now both the parents now working and carrying two jobs, it does create a new dynamic, and that's it's a cultural phenomenon that's different here in Australia than it is in some of these other countries. So even though it's amazing to look at how these models work around, there is always going to be a nuance for us, and I guess where this is going, and I think what I'm very keen to explore more with you in the task force you're on is how do we address this bed blockage issue that Nikki and you are so passionate about, because it's not one magic bullet. It's many different aspects of really connecting the acute sector with what is happening in our sector, in our world, and then really building a nice bridge of both trust, information, data, but also like these working models that we're in discussions about to help really solve for some of the challenges that are impacting that. So maybe you can share a little bit about that. What is the magic bullet? Where do we start first? What do you think?
I wish, Robert, you're so right in all you say. I wish there was a magic bullet. In fact, people often say I avoid blaming people, and I like to get people together. But actually, I feel at times like blaming everyone. I blame the Federal Department of Health for not planning ahead and seeing that there's a massive population of older people coming, and that they should have been counting the numbers of home care packages and aged care beds in every region in Australia and making sure that they get delivered. I feel like I should blame the hospital system for thinking that older people are not their citizens, and and they've done really nothing to develop specialist geriatric places where people can stay for quite a while, maybe 3 or 4 months, as they rehabilitate and get ready to either return home or go to aged care. I feel like I should blame the primary health network, because the GPs of Australia have really stopped home visiting and have stopped engaging with older people. They often consider the older person has left their client list when they're in hospital for a couple of months, and then they won't visit aged care homes necessarily to keep that service going. I feel like I should blame older people themselves, because hardly any of them are planned ahead. Hardly any of them have wills in place and advanced care directives. Hardly any of them want to modify their homes to make them age friendly as they get older. So you can see that rather than blame no one, I feel like it's best to blame everyone and see that the problem's only solved if everyone does their part. There are about 6 particular recommendations that we're lobbying pretty hard for, and I'll quickly run through them. We do think the federal government should invest about $1 billion a year, like the Royal Commission recommended, in aged care homes. They could either be grants to build beds in places like the Illawarra where there's a massive shortage, or loans to get buildings up and running and paid back later. And these should either be residential care homes and retirement villages together, ideally. The second thing is, I think aged care in Australia has to be considered an essential infrastructure. I think the South Australian government has just decided to call it essential infrastructure, which means that they no longer have to go through the local council to get land rezoning and land approvals and building approvals. They go straight to the state government. And we see that when someone wants to put up a hospital or a school or something really important, they get that kind of fast track pathway. Well, aged care now needs that, because without good aged care, the hospital system collapses. I think in the meantime, the third thing is that hospital departments or health departments in each state needs to develop specialist aged care places. We could call them interim care locations for older people to stay, to be rehabilitated. Illawarra is considering one. I know that other states are thinking about building them or opening them, because we're not going to be building enough aged care beds to meet the need now. It's going to take years. So the health departments need to accommodate people safely and comfortably in specific aged care expertise locations for at least the next 5 years, I would have thought. The fourth thing is that home care packages need to be expanded. They're going to be expanded shortly, but they need to be expanded more. There's about 80,000 coming in the next 12 months. There needs to be 200,000 to meet the need. And people getting good home care packages at home means they're less likely, or they're going to go to hospital later by maybe 2 years or 18 months. And they also might, in fact, avoid residential aged care. They go to hospital, but they have a shorter stay and get back home. That big influx needs to happen pretty quickly. The fifth thing is expand the hardship provisions. There's big concerns about co-payments for home care packages, and people are frightened about them, and they think they're going to have to choose between meals or therapies or showers. That's not right. They should definitely have an easy road to get those supplemented and supported, so they're not having to pay large amounts for those packages. We want people to use them to get preventative health going. And the last thing is we should leave that program I talked about earlier, the CHSP program, alone. It's 1 million Australians getting that early intervention assistance. We shouldn't be changing it, wrecking it, or rolling it into supported home. So there's 6 simple things that, as you can see, lots of people need to do at all levels. But if that was a big commitment, that would really lead to a much better aged care system for the big numbers coming.
And there's so many dimensions behind those 6 now. I'm just thinking of them, like, just about, let's look at residential. I mean, with the RADs in that capital not coming in the way it used to, and consumers taking more DAPs, and that already starts to put a shaky foundation on the forward-looking capital investments to build this infrastructure. When you're worried about liquidity ratios and all of that, so I mean, you just keep going, and then even with the trust factor over the years between the acute sector and the aged care, and I understand both sides, because my career, I started in Australia doing patient journey mapping, so I was looking at how to make the admission to discharge process much more efficient for New South Wales, and that led me into the aged care sector. So really seeing both sides and understanding the parameters of it, and I think where the hospitals would be looking at our sector, they're accurate with when they know a resident needs to be discharged. It's just that the fact that now there's this whole complexity around, okay, well, we don't know about this resident. We're not sure. We see something like respiratory, and the facility's been burned over the years, and then as they accept them, there's those elements where the pre-admission screenings are really scrutinizing because of what's happened, and then there's a trust factor there, and then even going to just consolidating our data and having the accessibility for even government to say, or the hospitals to say, what is available out there in the aged care residential side. But also, I think I was speaking to the CEO of IntelliCare last night, and he was sharing Daniel Pillman, who's used to be actually head of strategy for Opal too. But we were also chatting through the fact that there's probably a large portion, if these patients are ready to be discharged back to a community. This is where also support at home can come in. We can utilize these other affordable accommodation models like group homes, and even where the retirement living and these other aspects are coming to. So it can take on different forms and shapes, but it is so multidimensional. There's so many shades of gray behind each of these issues when looking at it on both sides of that. But it is, I agree with you 100%. But then I look at coming here from, the States in Chicago in 2005, and I know, the system over there is not. It's great if you've got means. I mean, if you can spend whatever you want on healthcare, you can find some of the top, call them entrepreneurs, and doctors that are really the cutting edge of the field. But outside of that, you have 85-year-olds working at Walmart because they need to be covered with the private health insurance, and they will greet consumers at the door, because some consultants said if you greet a potential customer before they walk in, they're less likely to steal or take theft. So there's like really this whole dynamic that's happening in that sector, which we don't have to deal with, but consistency, standardization are all part of it. And our history shows that. I mean, we've struggled with laying a common railway through other countries. So I mean, this is another level and dimension outside of that. But I guess we have to understand our history before we can really start to change some of these items. But everything you're noting is so spot on, and loving that work.
We have a great.
I want to pick up on. Sorry, Mark. Over to you.
No, I was just going to say that we have a great country in terms of a social services commitment by all levels of government to citizens, but we have it's much better than most countries in the world, but we have a complexity that's quite difficult to get to the bottom of. The states all operate differently. The local health districts all operate differently. All of aged care is privatized, so every aged care service operates slightly differently from each other. And in Australia, because it's privatized, it's up to each provider to meet the social need and to determine to do that. Yeah. And there's almost been no growth in 10 years because the sector's been under such dreadful pressure, financial pressure and regulatory pressure, workforce pressures and so on. Now, those things are improving a little bit now. Certainly the operating funding is improved, but there's big capital gaps, as you mentioned earlier. The workforce situation's diminishing a little bit, but not nearly enough yet. And there are courageous organisations who want to meet the need. They can see that there's a very big need to meet. Every time I meet someone, whether they're federal government, state government, local health district, aged care provider, they all want to solve the problem. They all have a will to do it, but getting everyone on the same page is quite complex. I sort of feel like I'd like to solve the nation's problem here today, but I think what actually happens is a region, a town, one locality is where we can solve problems. And that's where older people live. They don't really care. If they live in Wollongong, they don't really care what's happening in Darwin or Perth. What they want in Wollongong is a hospital that's working, some aged care choices, some home care packages, some GPs that will see them, and they'll be right. And I think we need regional solutions. So I'm quite committed to regional task forces and regional collaborations. I'm quite committed to the CEOs of local health districts being involved because they will get to know personally the aged care providers. They'll get to know personally some of the people stuck in their hospital. They'll get to know the numbers of home care packages, and they can see people at home needing home modifications or a home carer. So I think it's a big task region by region But I would hate for us to have a discussion at the national level and never get to the regional level. I just think we might as well start region by region and see what the relationships that already exist could do.
Mark, we're getting to that point of the show where we add people for backstage, but I just want to say you have brought a big posse, crew with you. We've had an outpouring of love, and Jesus, you've got a really strong fan base. So everything that you're doing, huge.
And Owen as well. We've got listeners chiming in on Owen. Go, Owen.
I'm feeling a bit of love there. I'll raise the roof.
First up to the stage is Paul Sadler. And so we're going to rotate through, probably between 4 and 5 minutes each, because there are people who's trying to jump on backstage, but because we're full backstage, they aren't able to get in. I'm getting notifications that they're not able to get in. So if we can keep it to 4 to 5 minutes, they'll have their question or comment to ask, and then I may have to unceremoniously yank you off. I'm sure I could have phrased that better, but let's go with Paul Sadler first. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Let's raise the roof for Paul Sadler, a friend of the show. We love you, Paul.
Friend of the show.
Great to see you.
Thank you. I was just going to follow up on Mark's comments about CHSP, because this week saw Ageing Australia holding a CHSP summit, which had over 100 people together in Melbourne to talk through what the benefits of that program have been, its focus on wellness and reablement, its entry-level services, as you talked about, Mark, the importance of that and the difference between us having that program in Australia and other countries that all too frequently don't have equivalent early intervention services to anything like the extent that we have via CHSP. So it's really coming into focus this year. I was at the Ageing Australia Summit on behalf of Meals on Wheels Australia, it was clearly the time. There's a lot of energy in the room, a lot of people advocating exactly the same point you were making, that this is a critical program and a critical service that is being provided to just shy of 1 million older Australians at the moment. It's a critical part of the aged care system, which we need to protect.
It'd be terrible if we didn't have it, or it got wrecked or adjusted or became complicated to use, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it would. And it's not a perfect system, and nobody who was there in Melbourne defended all parts of it. And it's the way the Commonwealth has treated it since it took over responsibility from the states and territories has not been brilliant, to be honest. And the regional focus, as Kim is just saying, has been, lost to some extent in recent times. But just yesterday, I was facilitating on behalf of the Inner West Sydney Sector Support and Development Project, an online session with providers wanting to prepare a submission to the Australian National Audit Office review of the effectiveness of CHSP. And, we were able to identify that not all of that local focus has been lost. We do retain really important services that have connections to local communities. And the point was made yesterday, they particularly have connections to cold communities and the Aboriginal community. And those reach out from CHSP services is critical for those communities.
And just as Mark was talking about that is a grassroots movement, and certainly I would like to highlight the good work Whitten's doing and Chris Marmolistis with the just put the link up here, the collaborative healthcare initiative, because this is I'm not sure how many people, listeners out there that are familiar with this, but we need more of this. we need more of the providers to now come up the other side of the reform changes. I mean, November 1st, we've got the news that the act's been now finalized. So I think that's a big relief, but also it allows us to move as an industry and get on with things and get on with some of these wider strategies because, Mark, as you pointed, there's 6 strong pillars of areas, but when you get into the dimensions and the shades of gray and the onions, we got to pull back and really start to unravel in there. It's going to take some time, and this is an issue today, and there are people waiting for critical even procedures that are having to defer that and even suffer as a result of that, which is just not what I think any Australian would really like to accept at their healthcare system, and so we're really spotlighting that for you.
I tell you what people can't wait for, and that's a meal. And I want to shout out Paul Sadler is the chair of Meals on Wheels Australia.
Meals on Wheels.
And you can stay at home waiting for a lot of things, but you can't wait many days or many hours for a meal. And the immeasurable difference that it makes to people to have a smiling volunteer turn up with a meal to say hello. And sometimes that meal is hot and a special diet meal if they've come from a hospital. That's extraordinary, and it's been going for quite a while, and it's the backbone. In fact, it's almost the most
70 years we chalked up last year since the first service was started in Australia.
Paul, thank you so much for jumping on. We're moving on to the next guest. Really appreciate it. Please, love having you on every week.
Paul, great to see you.
We'll see you in the Gold Coast.
And while our next
guest is Jackie Howard. We've opened up with Paul's exit. We've opened up a spot backstage. So fastest fingers first. If you click that link to join in, you can get on with us. And here we have Jackie Howard.
Hi guys.
Hey,
Thanks,
Jackie.
Mark.
Jackie.
Thanks, Mark, for letting me know that this was going on today. And I apologise. I've got a throat infection, so I'm a little scratchy. I guess for those who don't know me, I have a similar background to Mark in that I was the CEO of an aged care provider, and I've now moved to a portfolio career with boards. So I sit on the board of Uniting New South Wales, Rest Haven in South Australia, the district nurses in Tasmania, and also the Ageing Australia. I sit with Mark as a board member on there. But I'm calling from Tasmania, which is my home. So I live here and I love Tasmania, although the weather is pretty ordinary today.
Gorgeous.
Everybody says surprise. But I think I really resonated with Mark was saying earlier about the regional work. And we're a bit privileged in Tassie that we can actually do that for the whole of the state because we're small enough. So we've got an aged care collaborative here, which is the health service and the aged care sector working together. And it's been in place probably for about a couple of years, and it's a learning in progress, if you like, and there's still things that we need to do. But I think what's really great about that is that we're around the table, all of us together, talking about what we need to do, what is the problem, how do we need to fix it. And so that's getting a bit of traction. We've still got a bit of a way to go. And I think the focus has absolutely been on residential aged care. And we're pushing now hard to say, guys, that's not just the solution to the problem. Home care and getting people back into their own home is absolutely key. So because I'm in Tassie, and we recently had a state election, as some of you may know, we were really lucky to get our first aged care minister. And we were even more lucky that it's Bridget Archer, who's obviously sat in the federal parliament and now is one of our state members, which is brilliant. So through Ageing Australia, we're actually organising a meeting with Bridget so that we can actually talk about the matters that are really important. So, it's a bit like Mark said earlier, it's that, how do we influence federally? How do we influence from a state level? And how do we all work together to actually make this happen? So I think it is partly, removing that blame game. You know, we're all in this for the same ends, right? We want people to really age well. We want them to have a joyful aging, and sitting in hospital waiting for a bed or waiting for something. Sometimes they don't even know what they're waiting for. You know, they're getting infections, they're getting isolated, they're getting lonely, they're deconditioning. We all know what the issues are when people sit in beds in hospitals. It's absolutely not the place. So I think our focus has to move away a little bit from the rack. We're never going to have enough beds, not for the foreseeable future anyway. We all know that. Yeah. And so how do we really bring that focus back in on how do we get people home? And there will be people that can't go home. We know that, right? We're not naive. And I think it's how do we manage that? How do we talk to those people? Because some of the people that are sitting in beds don't want to go into a nursing home, but actually don't understand the complexity of their needs. And so how do we work better at, you know, working with them to make sure that they understand that? And then we get a little bit less resistance and a little bit less pushback, because we always have to remember, and I've been saying this for a long time, people have choice. So if I'm in hospital and I say, I don't want to go to a nursing home, or I don't want to go to these nursing homes, it is actually my choice. So it's actually how do we just make things work better? And like Mark, I've met plenty of providers out there. I sit on some of their boards that actually want to do this, that really want to make a difference to get people back into their own homes, into resi care if that's appropriate, but more importantly, back into their own homes and working with them to understand, you know, we're here for them. That's what we're here for.
So true. That's great, Jackie. And I mean, and we can take this offline too, but I'd love to continue to support those initiatives. And we've got a lot of clients down in Tasmania, but I think coming at it from a data lens too, I mean, we can see how that flow and that connection can be made both to the providers, to even now the home care and supported home people, but it's really where can we have a common area? And that's something we're working on to really bring the insights of that individual, that patient who needs to be informed, but B, we also need to bring the relevant parties, and so they can see that these are individuals sitting there waiting for their services, because on the home care side, they're sometimes paying thousands of dollars for a lead or referral or something, and it just doesn't make sense. And and I think there's again one dimension of a multi-dimensional problem, but I love everything you're saying.
And a lovely metric for
I love this.
Sorry,
absolutely.
How quickly can we get people out of hospital?
Yeah.
No, that's a really good metric.
I love this thinking. I love this thinking around regional clusters and what Mark's doing in the Illawarra region, what you're doing in Tasmania, and acting regionally, and then having that best practice sharing around this focus. Seems to be your real passion, Mark, of social cohesion, and what you're mentioning again there, Jackie. How do we build real proactive, thoughtful, engaged community around people so they're enjoying life more? So love to hear more about what you're doing there. It sounds like an exciting partnership that you're embarking on.
You know, that's exactly what we're here for, right? So thanks for
Jackie's going to be at the conference next week. We'll connect on LinkedIn. We'll catch up. Everyone meet up at the Mirrors Australia booth. We will do the all things aged care thing there, and come get your swag as well. Thank you so much, Jackie. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jackie. Look forward to catching up.
All right, next we have Matthew Southworth adding to the stage. How you going, Matthew?
G'day, Matthew.
Hey, Matthew.
Good afternoon. How are you? Yeah, I feel like I've been thrown into the fire.
Yeah. Now, Matthew is a local person from a very small village on the south coast of New South Wales, and he has connected with me recently to ask a very good question that most small towns in Australia need to ask. What is going to happen to the older people in this town as they get older if there's no aged care services here at all? And that's a brave person. He's actually inspired by other older people who are asking those questions for themselves and their spouses. And if they need support, they've got to move away to another town, quite a way away. So Matthew's a real hero for community development at the small town level. And Australia has a lot of small towns with older people in it.
Oh, yes, it does. And tyranny of distance. I mean,
good on you, Matthew, for speaking up and giving a voice to the people in the small towns. What's on your mind?
Werner, he's a builder in the town, and he came up with the idea that how can we do aged care in Kangaroo Valley? And Kangaroo Valley is 45-minute drive over the mountain wherever you go, because we're in a valley. So it's not easy, and people servicing the aged, the elderly within Kangaroo Valley have to travel in. So if we've got 50 people getting services, then 50 or 60 people are coming in to Kangaroo Valley to service those people. Can we look at some sort of service where that can be easier for the servicing aspect? Or alternatively, Werner is a builder. He's already got a site marked out. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to build a residential aged care home. But as Mark has consulted with us, we need to actually find out the needs first. What is the actual needs? Once we understand the needs, then we can start looking at the service model and getting people interested. So we're just at the very grassroots level, trying to understand what the community wants. And then from that, where do we go from there? So we've already met with Fiona Phillips in relation to the federal involvement, and she's supportive coming across there. And we've just built a survey which is going to go out to the community through the Valley Voice or the post office, which is the central hub within the valley. And then from there, we'll work out the stats, and hopefully we'll work with Mark. We'll get some pointers from Mark to work out where do we go from next. Our valley is population about 800, 850. 50% of the people are 50 or over. So, it's going to be a problem.
Matthew, what's such a great initiative, and I would love to also support. I'm just up the hill in the Highlands, but certainly to help set up a group home up there for 38 villas when the Tolich family community sold to Baptist Care. They've continued on, but in this alternative and accommodation model for really aged care, but a varied sort of privatized, but also will be supported and benefited by the support at home initiatives. And there's a lot of great work and thinking in there that I love to share some of those areas. But that's fantastic and such a beautiful part of the world. Sign me up when I'm giving that all too, Matthew. But fantastic.
That'd be good. I might take you up on that. I'm sure we could learn some things. We'd like to be able to offer residential home care to people outside of Kangaroo Valley if they'd like to retire here. It's a beautiful place, beautiful views. It's a quiet little valley. The bridge doesn't work anymore, so there's no trucks. So it's the silver lining.
What a shame. Does anyone know about that?
It takes some patience, though. You've got to wait for oncoming traffic before you can commit. So it is a great local legend, but it's fantastic.
Matthew, thank you so much.
I love the way we bring people together on all things aged care. Great to hear your story and what you're doing. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.
We'll see you hopefully on the next week. Please tune in regularly.
Yes, yeah, please come by again.
All right, next we've got Dale Wakefield. I'm not sure if he's there. His camera is off. While we wait for him to jump on,
I am here. Hello.
G'day.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just finished driving and I've just pulled into my office. So I have been listening the whole way and been really appreciating all the conversations. So nice to see you again, Mark, and hi to everyone else.
Great to see you again, Dale. And just for everyone's sake, Dale runs an incredible organisation called Sea Change Professionals and provides allied health services to people all across the community. And he's had some amazing experiences in Canada, understanding the health and hospital and aged care system there. And he's an innovator. Every time I meet with him, he tells me some wild idea that may just work, and he can see the gap in most systems, and he's a brilliant innovator. So it's great to have Dale on this show too.
We love our ideas, people. Tell us more, Dale. What have you learned? What's top of mind for you?
Well, I guess I'll start off just by saying, like, I'm a registered nurse by background with a lot of community experience in Canada and Australia. The part of the service or part of the sector that I work in is usually preventative, right? So I love home care packages. I like keeping people at home long term. I like to look at innovative ways to do that. And I've got a bit of a saying that those that think they are too small to make to think they can make a difference have never tried to sleep with a mosquito in the room. So I really do agree with Mark around local solutions, and over the next few months, trying to really innovate and create things locally is where it needs to be. Sometimes you look at all of the things that Mark has described and all the angles and the things that need to change, and it can seem like such a big mountain to climb. We really only need to start by chipping away on a few little things to make a few small percentages of differences and start a bit of a cascade. Or be the fuse on a firecracker. So like that. One of the things that we've done over the last year or two is try to offer in our service areas same-day assessment services for low cost. So for half of our usual service price, if someone's had a fall, if someone needs to be seen by an allied health professional, physio, OT, whatever that might be, we'll try and get there usually same day to prevent a hospitalization. In bed blocks a big issue. I look at that as like the bucket's full. But how can we actually stop pouring water into that bucket? And if we can every week stop 1 or 2 seniors from our area going to hospital, that's a huge win for us. And that's what our allied health professional staff love to do, keep people at home safe as long as possible.
That's so true. And you're so right. The bucket is full, but we're just band-aiding the backside of that and finding another bucket to pour it into, but we have to fix the other side and everything in between. So that's another great example of a dimension that we started this discussion around. I'd be keen to hear more of some of those ideas, Dale. Given your background and I'm sure you would have gone through a lot of the original training where you would have worked for your degree in RN of working in community hospitals and maybe tell a little bit about that and how it led you to this passion today.
I really like seeing the joy that people get from staying at home longer than they think they can stay there for. I've worked in residential care, home care, acute care. I started my acute care career as an emergency department nurse. So, some might think that, being in aged care is the furthest place from that at the moment. But the number of seniors that I'd see, even as a young RN, that would sit in hospital hallways for days and then stay months in hospital. So my passion is really trying to turn them away. And I've had experience of working from the community side, embedded within hospital programs, trying to keep people away, but also from working within the hospital and trying to get people back again. So I think I really understand the disconnect that can happen, as well as the isolation of the professional. So a lot of people in the acute sector, born and raised, their careers within that sector, they don't really know how someone can function. And we've probably all seen it quite a bit. We say, there's no way that person can get home. Well, actually they can. You don't know how resilient some of our seniors are, how they have functioned at that level, sometimes for years. And although you might not have seen that because you haven't had a community experience. So I guess I'm really interested in the next few months, locally at least, in connecting more and figuring out how we can communicate with our acute care partners what is a baseline level of function for someone that is in our community. Because we know them, right? All these community people, whether it's a home care organisation or an allied health organisation, we know how they function. We know what it takes to get them home again. But a lot of that gets forgotten the minute they arrive at a hospital in an ambulance or the minute they're on a stretcher in the ER. And so if we can turn a small percentage or a few of them away or get them back supported, even with a small increase in services for that, then maybe we can stop putting water into that bucket.
And the tragedy, Dale, is our research shows that nearly 80%, I think 78% of people who end up bed blocked in hospital, staying several months stuck in a bed, were reached out of their home by an ambulance, went to ED, and they might have left a cup of tea on the table and the hose running in the garden, and they never expected to go anywhere, and they'll never, ever go home again. That was the last moment they spent at home. And that's most of the people in bed block who end up in residential care in the Illawarra area. And it's a big tragedy. If everyone stood around and particularly had an advocate for the person saying, no, they're going to
right.
go home. I know
Yeah.
it's difficult. I know
Yeah.
they're unsteady. I know the
Yeah.
back steps are unsafe. I
You
know
got
they
it.
can't cook now because the gas stove stays on, but we're going to bundle up all these different things and get them home regardless. Now, that
Yeah.
takes a bit of courage, and the hospital probably can't approve it. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to give people that choice to go home, don't you?
Yeah. No, you sum that up perfectly.
Dale, I love this focus on building resilience, and I also loved that we talked about the STARS program last week with Tanya Southworth. Mark, is Dale working closely with that team as well? It's amazing some of the outcomes there.
Yeah, no, it's not yet. In fact, we do come across.
We need
Not
to
yet.
connect you, Dale.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we do here. That's how we roll at All
Exactly.
Things Aged Care. We're
Love
not
it.
just about talking, we're about actioning. As Nikki would say, you get a task list and you move through it. But Tanya Southworth, talk more about the team, Mark, because you've had some amazing outcomes. 20 volunteers, people being moved on from their beds within 14 days. That's now at 65% or so.
Yeah, is Anthony, is Tanya in the back room there? Because she might even come on and
Yeah, I
give us
was
the latest
wondering
numbers.
if Tanya could join us, Anthony. Is that possible?
Yeah,
We
no,
could
she's not
bring
backstage.
Dale-
Tanya, if you're listening, click that link.
Tanya, come
Join us
back.
backstage and we'll add you on.
This is your moment right now, Tanya.
We're just expanding the program to Shoalhaven Hospital because they've got such big demand. 25% of the beds in Shoalhaven Hospital are used by people should have been discharged over a month ago. And so we're going to expand the program there. And I tell you what, talking to people, finding out their story, meeting their kids, hearing about what their home is like, hearing about where they would like to go if they had to go into 24/7 care, is really life-changing. And the hospital CEO, Margot Mains, has heard these stories and is learning a lot about what it's like for people to be stuck in hospital in her hospitals. And this is beyond the data. This is the real life experience and stories of people who are experiencing this. And as Dale rightly said, the hospital has a lens looking at the person as a clinical need set. But the solution often is the neighbours and the nephews and all the other people in the community who could assist the person get back home but aren't even on any radar. So it's fascinating to hear these people's stories.
So Tanya is actually backstage. So thank you, Dale. Raise the roof for Dale. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you more
Thanks,
often.
Dale. We will raise the roof for you. Love your passion for what you do and come back.
Sure.
And we are adding who I believe is Tanya.
And here she is. Just like that.
Thanks to
Tell us
Matt.
more about we're feeling the love from Heather Massiano. She says, we love the STARS program and amazing volunteers. Tell us more.
Oh, well, look, we have these amazing volunteers who give their time. They're people that have a lot of aged care experience. A lot of them have worked in aged care, but also a lot of them have what I call a lived experience. And some of them have both. You know, they've got elderly parents that they're assisting with the change into aged care services, and they're donating their time. They are like us. They agree that this shouldn't be happening, but it is. And so they're willing to give their time. And we talked about what it's like and how isolating and how debilitating it can be to be waiting in a hospital bed. And they're willing to spend their time, often providing some moral support, very, very good listeners, but they've got time that no one else has in that system. If you can appreciate in acute hospitals how crazy it can be getting people well because they want to get them well and out. Yet they have these people, these older people. And the other thing I think our volunteers have shared with us is, you know, often it's the carers and loved ones of the older person in hospital that are also really negatively impacted, are overwhelmed by the whole situation. So far we've assisted 48 older people in hospital in these circumstances. Quite often we find that the volunteers sort of fit in with the teams. There's social workers, there's nurse student managers, there's nurses, they've got a placement team, and all these people are doing everything they can. But in the middle of all that, a volunteer has the time to sit by their side quite often, because there's so much that goes on in their head. As Mark said, they've in their PJs, they've been landed in hospital. Suddenly they've been told they can never go home. They've got to pack. Their kids have got to pack up their stuff, or actually a stranger has got to pack up all their stuff. They've got to move into residential care, yet there's no places, and they're stuck in the middle of all that. So their mind's racing with all this stuff and financial considerations. And so having a volunteer who can spend time with them while they process that information and come to terms with that is
like a
we're
wedding
finding we get a lot of feedback, but it really
such a multitasking challenge. Well, let's raise for the amazing people in this program.
Our volunteers. Mark is one of our volunteers, and I normally get him to assist with people that are facing so many barriers. Some people, the barriers into residential care are incredible. I've got one gentleman, and he was a boxer in his life, and he has a bit of a rough past. And do you think he could find a residential care provider that was willing to take him on? Anyway, he recently found a placement, one of our local aged care providers giving him that opportunity after 7 months in hospital.
That's fantastic. Well done, Stars program.
Thank you.
I can see Mark doing cartwells on the inside there. I know that. How are we going for time, Ed? We had our backstage packed all day today. I do want to say, Michael from Sawtell Catholic Care, is he still back there, Ed, or not?
No, he's jumped off, but he left us with a few comments.
I'd just like to read a couple of those. He said, Mark, you need to be in Canberra setting policy. No one there understands the system and the levers needed to make it work and flow properly. We need to incentivise aged care related constructions, especially, just like you were saying, including retirement living and social and affordable housing. So we definitely want to give Michael his voice. There's some great points there. And Mark, we do want to see you in Canberra. The thing about retiring, Mark, I think there's another 5 years away.
I think Mark, if you got some closing points, we're coming to the end of the show. Mark, give us some closing thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Australia has a fundamentally good aged care and healthcare system, but it's broken at the moment because it's seriously undersupplied. We're all getting older, some of us getting older much faster than the rest of you, but we can all do our part. There has to be stuff done at the state, federal, local, primary health, tertiary health and home care levels. And if everyone just does those pieces, those parts, if we lift, we're going to be ready. It's going to take a while, quite a few years of concerted effort, but there's some really great people, as you've seen today, working on this, and I think it's going to come together. So I feel quietly hopeful that older people in Australia can feel a bit more confident that over the next few years we're going to see some improvements, particularly as each regional level comes together.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is all for one and one for all. I think all.
Yes, here we go. We are the three musketeers of aged care. Ant, Rob, and I, all for one and
one for all. We'll
making aged care better together.
You should practice that.
Let's.
Thanks so much, guys. Raising the roof for everyone. Thank you so much,
everyone. Raise the roof for Mark Sewell. What a legend.